What's going on, guys? It's John DeYong here, and welcome to my final video of my three-part series on how to find an A-grade market, an A-grade area, and an A-grade property. Today, I want to talk about what I look out for when trying to find an A-grade property. If you haven't already watched the previous two videos, I'd highly recommend going to watch them first, as finding a specific property is really the final piece of the puzzle. Property commentators often say that location does 80% of the heavy lifting, where the actual property does the remaining 20%. So being able to identify the right times in the property market to buy and what to look out for when it comes to location is more important than specifics of a property. On paper, there's two main areas that investors generally look out for. One is capital growth, which is just how much value the property increases over time. And the second is high rental yields, which just means you're getting paid a higher rental amount compared to the price of the property. These two often don't come packaged together because rental rates generally lag behind property prices by 6 months or more. Rental yields are generally lower on properties that grow quickly. To calculate the rental yield, you divide the total annual rental income by the value of the property. So let's say you had a $500,000 property and it's currently being rented out at 4% rental yield. That's $20,000 per annum. Over the next 2 years, that property grows at 9% per annum to $5,940,000. And the rental manager hasn't contacted the tenants over those 2 years because everything seems to be going smoothly. So the property is still being rented out at $20,000 per annum. Now, if you were to calculate that rental yield, it would only be 3.36%. As you can see, this is how the rental yield lags behind, because rental contracts are generally 12 months or longer, and some property managers would rather keep good tenants in a property at a lower rate. Hence why it's hard to get a high rental yield property in a high capital growth area. However, it is possible to get a hold of these unicorn properties, and they call them unicorn because they are just very rare, where there's a high historical capital growth, high rental yields, and potential to manufacture some equity. And investors generally take a snapshot in time to align these three qualities. The problem with looking at a property at a snapshot in time is that it's not sustainable for a long period. For example, you may be able to take a snapshot of high rental yields now, but as demonstrated before, this can easily deteriorate over time. So realistically, these unicorn properties all just come down to the person interpreting the data. For me personally, due to the ridiculous cost of buying and selling a property, I always take a 10-year view when analysing a property, and try and find a balance between capital growth and rental yields. Growing up in the greater west of Sydney, there was plenty of land available. People owned acres and majority of the houses were built on huge blocks. So when I first heard the term that land appreciates in value while buildings depreciate in value, I put a big emphasis on having a large block of land. Moving to Melbourne, I've realised that although this statement still holds true, it doesn't solely refer to land size, but more land value. Living much closer to the city in Melbourne, it's obvious that tiny blocks of land with titles of Art Deco apartments are much more valuable than huge blocks of land 20 kilometres away from the CBD. Land banking is the counter here, and if you can manage to land bank over time through gentrification and rezoning, the value of the land should increase dramatically. This is also what we refer to as generational wealth, where it might take multiple decades to see substantial growth. As a general rule of thumb though, I look for houses that have a land component that takes up about 60 to 70% of the value. And for units, I look for at least 30 to 40%. Also, if you're loving this content, make sure you smash that like button as it seriously helps out with the YouTube algorithm. Dwelling type and size is also a key factor here. It's all well and good to have an area with low vacancy rates, but what if the percentage of vacancy is mostly associated with one-bedroom apartments? I wouldn't want to be stuck paying for the mortgage of a property that was sitting there vacant. So once I have the area down packed, I look for the dwelling types in the middle of that property bell curve, preventing me from buying an apartment in an area where the usual block size is 600 meters squared and the properties have 3 or 4 bedrooms. On the flip side of that though, I wouldn't want to overcapitalise by buying a 5-bedroom house with a media room that never gets used and only fetches a tiny margin extra in rent per month compared to a 3-bedroom unit in a smaller block in the same area. In most cases, I would buy an older house over buying a brand new house. It's easy for salespeople to sell you on the depreciation of a brand new house, but why would you spend $1 to only make 30 cents back? Remember that materials depreciate over time, and new materials devalue the fastest. It's like driving a new car out of a dealership and instantly losing $10,000. Once an oven or a cooktop has been used, it's hard to sell it for as much as a brand new one. Supply and demand come in many different forms, and an area might be overflowing with properties for sale, but demand is not meeting that supply level. However, if something unique that's an investment grade property comes onto the market, then a lot of that limited demand might fix their attention on this one unique property. I would look for properties with some sort of character or uniqueness within that area, basically looking for scarcity or a rare quality. This scales down even to basic features such as having a north-facing block or quick access to local parks. The third piece of the formula to a unicorn property is being able to manufacture equity. This can be done in many different ways, however, can only be executed once each in a short amount of time period. Manufacturing equity is as simple as spending $5,000 on a renovation and increasing the value of a property by $10,000. And this is my general rule of thumb. For every $1 I spend, I want to be getting $2 back. So identify the things that significantly increase the value of a property for the smallest amount of money. Sometimes a new paint job can make a place feel brand new, or turning a large living area into a third bedroom could open up the floodgates for new types of buyers. When I said that you can only execute on these things once, an example of this would be adding a granny flat. You can't really do that twice. Or spending $5,000 on a paint job. You can only really repeat this every 5 to 10 years, so that it has a dramatic effect on the property price. Now, let's get into the bare minimum of checks I would do before signing any legal contracts. This list isn't suited for any individual property or state, so please investigate further for your own due diligence checks. Building and pest inspections are so critical, and they're often overlooked because of that upfront cost. But really, they could be saving you hundreds of thousands of dollars if something was wrong with the foundation of the building, or there was a cracked water pipe in the building somewhere. Always walk through the dwelling with the inspector, as that final report can often seem like the entire house is about to fall down. Anything they note down, just ask them about. You'll quickly realise what a minor issue is compared to a major issue that may stop you from buying the property altogether. Ensure that you get all of the legal documentations checked from a solicitor or a conveyancer. They'll be able to ensure that you're buying what you think you're buying, and that there's no hidden clauses or outstanding issues that may catch you out. If you are buying brand new, make sure you do some thorough research on the building and developer. Search online for reviews, try and find some previous projects, and at the very extreme level, even get in contact with the new owners of those projects. See if they've had any issues or there's any outstanding maintenance items. If I'm buying in a strata building, I do a thorough check of the strata meeting minutes and the full strata report, looking out for any hidden fees, upcoming additional levies, or complaints or difficulties from existing residents. I know that I've talked about time on market in the previous video, but I would compare that specific property's time on market to the area's average, trying to identify if it's been to auction already and passed in, or had any price drop since it's been on the market, and finding out why. It could have just been overpriced to start with. Finally, I would ask the agent for the reason of the vendor's sale. If it's a rush sale, such as the owners are getting divorced or they've recently passed away, it could be a good way to get a quick, easy sale done. Obviously, don't take full advantage of the owners as they're already going through a hard time. I want to know what other things you guys look out for when looking for an investment property. Leave them down in the comment section below. Ultimately, for me personally, I want to buy a property for its value rather than its price. I'd be happy to pay market value for an A-grade investment property rather than pay under market value for a B or C grade property. As always, seek your own professional financial, legal and property investment advice for your current situation. These videos are just my opinion and are general in nature and should never be considered as personal advice. If you're keen for more content, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button so you don't miss a video. And until next time, happy house hunting.